I want to start with ticker BIXT today, and let's get through their latest PR. And this is pharmaceutical stuff and it's science stuff. So any questions that you guys have, I'm going to try and manage the chat and everything tonight. Make sure you ask questions. This isn't for me. This is it's for me and all of us. This is for you guys. Take advantage of the chat and ask good questions. First-hand due diligence. Let's take a look at this recent PR. All right. BioXyTran gets broad patent coverage on 60 plus viruses. The company developing oral and intravenous drugs to create COVID-19 and other viral diseases announced that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has published the company's patent application, and I'm not going to read that number, lectin-binding carbohydrates for treating viral infections. The pending patent covers broad claims about the use of hundreds of combinations of antiviral complex carbohydrate drugs to treat over 60 named viruses. The article goes on. The glycovirology platform is a market-forming technology with potentially wide-reaching implications. This patent represents what we believe is a new direction in the evolution of antiviral therapies that originally started in the HIV epidemic. And it goes on to talk about how BioXyTran, with its complex carbohydrate inhibitor, entry inhibitor, is next-generation antiviral, which prevents cellular entry by neutralizing the virus outside of the cells so it never gets into the cells to replicate. We talked about that in the last show, and I'll tell you, I put it right there in the chat, in the live chat. If you scroll up, that whole podcast is right there, and it's a lot of just explanation as to what exactly scientifically the process is. And I hope to have that re-explained tonight. So BioXyTran has completed 3 successful in vitro tests for COVID-19, RSV, and H1N1 that demonstrate the potential of our galectin antagonist to be used as a broad-spectrum antiviral. Further research is needed to determine the boundaries of the broad-spectrum activity. It goes on, galectins are involved in the cellular entry mechanism that blocking them interferes with their ability to enter the cell, or that galectins are involved in the overall disease pathology. Since our initial thesis was published in March 2020, over 40 scientific journal articles have been published on the topic. This is possibly a groundbreaking patent because we believe it is the first of its kind in the field of glycovirology. The broad claims in terms of combinations of molecules and the number of viruses likely affected a present and preeminent position in this field of research. Being the first in the field and progressing closer to a registrational trial demonstrates the company is a leader in drug development in this field. Intellectual property portfolio goes on to talk about how this will basically add to that. This field research holds so much promise. There exists the potential for there to be a rush to develop drugs, which could rival that of the movement to develop antibiotics, which occurred after the first use of penicillin. All right, and this is a quote from Dr. Leslie Ayahi. I think that's how you say it. I'm gonna ask Mike if that's correct. How many big pharmas that have over 60 disease indications can say it comes from just one platform technology? This patent covers some of the largest indications in virology and includes viruses like COVID-19, influenza, herpes, Epstein-Barr, shingles, hepatitis C, measles, mumps, and rubella. All right, and it talks a little bit about prolectin M, and I hope that he talks a little bit more in depth, but prolectin M is an oral galectin antagonist that prevents the entry of SARS-CoV-2 virus in humans. In recent clinical trials, the drug achieved a 100% rate of negative PCR tests by day 7. In 3 days, the drug achieved an 88% responders rate of negative PCR tests. The treated population experienced no viral rebounds during the 14-day observation period. The company is preparing for phase 3 clinical trials in order to seek regulatory approval. So this is really exciting stuff. And, for those of you out there that are like, all right, I'm sick of the COVID stuff. I'm sick of it. This is all very, very relevant stuff. And so it's not just about COVID. It's about influenza and all those other things that were just mentioned in that PR. So let's just get into this. Are you guys ready? Let's bring him in, Mr. Mike Sheikh. Mike, welcome
B-Rock, hey.
to the BFC. How you doing?
Good.
So what is going on? How you been?
I've been doing good. You did a really good synopsis, just kind of going over the press release. This press release is huge, man. Not many people. I'm actually surprised we didn't get a bigger lift than what we did off this press release. But it's kind of like we went to the moon, we stuck a flag on it, and we said the moon is ours. Okay. I mean, literally, that's what we did in this field of research. Now, I want to give you a disclaimer. It's a patent pending, but we're the first guys out there who's gonna say, oh yeah, I did this. It's not gonna happen. Okay. So I mean, it could happen, don't get me wrong, it's just very unlikely. But look at what they gave us. Not only did we get a whole bunch of different viruses, we got a whole bunch of molecules. So we literally got, let's use the moon analogy. All the minerals on the moon, all the different ways that we can make metals, we got it. That's all different ways that we can use carbohydrates to treat these viruses. Well, that's what we have. There's hundreds. Okay. So now let's say we start proving this technology out and we want to do more. We want to go after that galectin signature. Guess what happens? Oh, you want to do that? Okay. You want to license it from us? No problem. Pay the licensing fee. So that's really huge news, is when we prove this technology out, this is a huge value. So we covered the molecule, we covered the viruses. It's the other thing is broad spectrum. We're finding out that our molecules not only act on one virus, but multiple viruses. Just that one molecule, when we did in vitro studies on 3. We plan on doing some more in vitro studies, and I can't say which ones that we're going to do next because there's no. I mean, we're going to sit down and formulate that. But if you read between the lines, why am I talking all about HIV? There's a huge case as to why a galectin antagonist would be great in HIV. I mean, we use that to form our theory on why it was going to work in COVID. So we're really excited about that.
Real quick, could you explain to people that may have missed the last podcast? And by the way, guys, scroll up because the whole podcast is there. Watch it; it's worth a listen. Galectin inhibitors. When you talk about galectin, just briefly discuss in simple terms what that is.
A galectin inhibitor is something, basically it blocks a protein that recognizes carbohydrates. That's what it is. Now, why is that important? Because you see, what viruses do is they use those proteins to gain viral entry. We believe that it's a tethering mechanism. The virus tethers to the cell before it achieves the viral entry. So if we interfere with that process, or we block that process, then the cell can't ever get into. The virus can't get into the cell. I mean, that's and in that press release we talk about the new direction. So for the past 20 years, what everyone's been doing is they kill viruses, or they lower the viral viruses by letting the virus in the cell and messing with the replication process. Okay, that's like, I'm a military guy. That's like, hey, let's open up the gates to our fort. Let the company let all the enemy in, and we're going to have a kill zone there. Okay. Yeah.
Sounds familiar. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that works. That destroys the enemy. But there's risk with that, right? So what we're saying is, you know what? Let's not even let them in the fort. Let's just block them, like when they get on shore, before they even get here. Or that's equivalent to, hey, let's just bomb the living daylights out of them before they even get to the fort, right? There's a different way of thinking. And this is the next generation idea. This is the new direction. entire we think virology is going to go into. That's why we call it glycovirology. So anyhow, that breaks down pretty much.
So
Our
when you were
press.
talking about the patents, you were talking about the patent pending. Is the patent basically for a combination of molecules, or is it for the process itself for those certain diseases?
No, we didn't get
That's why
into.
I was a little confused in
Yeah,
reading that.
we didn't really get into the process of how it binds the spike protein. That's called the mechanism of action, and we already have. I think those are future patents
Mhm.
that will come on the mechanism of action. They take a lot of money to prove the mechanism of action. No, we're just talking about a whole bunch of combinations of carbohydrates, different formulations of different carbohydrates together, single, apart, together, whatever. That's one set of it. And the other set of it is, oh, hey, we got a bunch of viruses that we believe that this is going to work in.
Right on. So if you could just continue to summarize the rest of that PR, just go in a little more depth in regards to just
Well,
how you. No, go ahead, sir.
there's some other ones in there. Like I just mentioned, we put a little bit of focus on the HIV. Another one that I think is near and dear to our chief medical officer is shingles. We have a case study coming out on that where we had 85%. This is one person, okay, and it's in the process of being peer reviewed. But there was an 85% reduction in lesion size over 6 days, and the pain just went away within hours. That's huge. There's 2 million people afflicted with shingles, and we think that there could be a topical solution. So not only we ingesting it, but we think there's a topical application for that. So that really gives you an idea. I mean, this patent, this technology, this platform technology is enormous. I mean, think about all the companies that are going after influenza, HIV, all these other viruses. I mean, there's deadly viruses. I don't know if you noticed, we put, I think there was Ebola, Marsburg, what's that other, the Nipah virus.
Nipah.
I mean, we can make a case for all of them. I mean, these are viruses with high mortality rates, over 50%. They're not fun. You do not want to get those viruses.
Are there certain galactins, like in researching and just reading on this, are there certain galactins that would be, are they more vulnerable than others, or like is each disease going to have some kind of a different molecular code, I should say, to.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So what you're talking about, it's called the galectin signature. It's like a disease signature where certain galectins are upregulated or downregulated. See? So we basically want to formulate a molecule that basically how do I say, neutralizes the virus or the disease state in such a way where the certain galectins that are upregulated, we can downregulate them, and there might be a 1, 3, and a 9. There could be a 5, a 5 and a 7. We could make all different drugs for that galectin signature.
Right on. Yeah. And I thank you for correcting me on that. Now I know to use the term signature.
The galectin signature. That's right. Signature. Yeah.
And by the way, I did see your presentation at the Emerging Growth Conference. And by the way, in regards to that, thank you for using plain English. I think that a lot of shareholders are going to get a lot out of that, or potential shareholders, because sometimes when you get into the nitty gritty, you get into the science, you guys just have, it's harder to break through to an average investor mentality or knowledge base, I guess you could say, because not everybody is well versed in medical knowledge or scientific knowledge. And so I'll tell you right now, just in starting this channel, I've learned about so many different things. All right. And so I find it fascinating that, in doing due diligence, I consider myself a little bit more knowledgeable on this, not close to where I should be. But I mean, it really is a great thing. That's why, guys, if you have questions, this is the time to ask. ask Mike, put them in the comment section. But no, it's really, really cool. So I'm glad that you're able to share this knowledge with us. But yeah, so talk about have you gotten any traction? I know you talked about like working with small pharma. Have you got any traction with these companies? Anything in the works that you could possibly share with us today? I have to pick a little bit. I gotta ask.
You got to. You know, I don't know how to convey to investors because they got a little bit of it, but maybe not so much. I'm deadly serious about pursuing this as an option. Okay, we are talking to big or not big pharma, small pharma. We want to do a deal with small pharma. And what I can say to you is that we have signed an NDA with a small pharma. That's kind of breaking news. So we're actually breaking news on this channel here a little bit.
Good.
But it's not worthy of a press release or anything. It's like it basically what I want to convey is I'm very serious. We are serious as a team pursuing this. And then, I'll expand a little bit more beyond that. You remember, there are also companies that were looking for these strategic alternatives. So I can say that we have bid on one of these companies looking for strategic alternatives.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're in the fray. We're
Good.
very serious about doing this. So, as an investor, you might look at us as we might actually be a consolidation play. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but we are excited. So anyhow, I think that's about all I can go into. We can't tell you about discussions and what we're having, but I could tell you if there's activity, and it's starting, and it's going to be more, and it's going to continue, and it'll be more significant.
Good. That's a great answer. So I'm glad to see that you guys are pursuing that. And you guys, if you haven't watched the Emerging Growth Conference with Mike, it was great and a lot of plain English there. And you know what? OTC left a comment here, and I got to share this. You know what? He goes, "It sounds like Halloween." And when I was talking to Mike before the show, I go, "What is that noise or what?" It's actually rain. It's raining there. He goes, "It sounds like Halloween." So, it does. There's an eerie sound, but hey, it adds to the ambiance of what's going to take place in a couple days, Halloween. So, Brian has a great question, and I did want to bring this up. Where's the money coming from, and from to continue phase 3? So, my other two questions were the Triton Fund, the Triton Group. So, could you talk a little bit about where you are at with the funding, how you're going to proceed forth, and just let's focus on the funding aspect right now.
Okay. So let's talk about Triton. Triton is an institutional investor, and they're a fundamental institutional investor, and they're squarely in our camp. And it's sometimes hard for people to read what the S1 is all about. So let me just kind of put this in simple English, like you asked for everyone out there. Look, what Triton has done is they've given us a backstop. This is basically a line of credit for us that we are able to draw down at our option. It's at a fixed price, no death spiral, none of that funky business. Okay. So when the time comes and the market conditions exist, we can draw down on it. And we may or we may not. It depends. If some of you would, if more retail would wake up and realize, the real value here, then, we might never have to do it. We might never have to use it. But they're there. They basically are acting as a backstop for our phase 3. So, if we can't excite the retail base and get this, get the stock up to where, to its glory days where it needs to be, it's kind of like a backstop for us. They believe in us and they want to see the technology go. So you could say that's our backup plan. So we're showing you our backup plan. We're working on the primary, and I just kind of went over what our primary is, but people don't believe me yet, but they will. Okay,
yep.
So
they want to see it.
We're very serious about pursuing small pharma, and let me tell you how simple my pitch is. It's like, look, we got something. I mean, this is to a small pharma. Look, we got something that's going to be bigger than penicillin. Are you interested in getting shareholders who are pissed off and have beaten your stock price down to a massive discount under cash? Do you want to get them off your back? Okay, well, you need a pipeline. We have a pipeline. You also have the cash. Why don't we do something together? It's just that simple of a pitch.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, this is a different era now. Does the influx of retail, does funding in general, does that make you a little nervous moving forward as to what if you don't get the response from a retail shareholder to boost your share price to create that attention towards the stock itself? And are you afraid that if you don't do that, that big funders won't come in, future funders won't come in?
We definitely we need to generate a little bit of excitement in our stock.
Mm.
We'll get that. I think when we finally make our announcement that we started dosing people, that'll be a nice little value inflection point.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's like peer reviewed some articles that we have. So when people see that the scientific evidence is building, I mean, how many times do I need to knock investors over the head? I'm like, shingles, 2 million people a year get it. And we have something that's, if the case studies prove out in a clinical trial, it's pretty darn amazing. So, it's just really a matter of time before retail, gets it. And I think I think the retail that does step in is going to find out that there's really not that much overhang on our stock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ready. But anyhow, there's only one way to find out is to push the buy button.
Yep, and in this economic reset, I guess you could say for the OTC, because it isn't as active as it was in 2021. I think it's silly to make the comparison of what, that's not the staple of what the OTC is, and that's just a fact, whether people like to hear that or not. And there's a lot of real companies out here that we could pretty much buy at a discount at this point, in my personal opinion. And my last question for you, I wanted you to talk about really the importance moving forward of these phase 3 trials. Why is this so crucial?
Yeah, phase three. The first, there's two elements to what we have. Okay, there's a phase 3. We have two areas or two regions that we're seeking approval. One is in India, and the second is the United States. We're going to focus on India and why that's important. Getting a registrational phase 3 trial is so important because that's when we get a deal with an Indian pharmaceutical.
Mm-hmm.
The Indian pharmaceuticals are a little bit different in the sense that they will, you can't say they will, I can't say we will. They are very highly motivated to do a deal once it's approved. They're not taking any risk. But the truth is, we are set up to be our own distributor in India. Should no one step up to the plate, we'll figure it out. But that's why it's a big deal. Is we have a contingency plan, but we're definitely ready to license. And once it becomes approved, it should be licensable. Now, is the regulatory climate's a little bit different in India than it is in the United States. So it's actually helpful to kind of go over this again for some of the viewers out there. In India, what happens is you have to do all the manufacturing up front. That means when you do your confirmatory pivotal trial, what you're doing is if you meet the endpoints, there's not this long review process. It's pretty much, they say, oh, you met your endpoints, great. Here's your, then they don't find some way to withhold the approval, by like in the US, go to an AdCom committee or something like that. They're looking at safety. But in the United States, you get to dose a person before you have all the manufacturing in place. Now, so ideally, it's cheaper to do it in the US, unless, like us, you can make the commitment to all the manufacturing. We've made all the commitments to the manufacturing, and it really wasn't a risk because we knew the drug worked. It's rare that the drug works before, or has, I shouldn't say works, has efficacy before you go into the trial. It's rare, but we knew that. So it wasn't a real risk to us. And for investors thinking that there's a risk of manufacturing in the US, well, we've done it in India, so of course we can do it in the United States. So we're highly confident And that helps compare the U.S. versus the Indian markets. So know that you're kind of hedged. We have a dual regulatory strategy, the U.S. and India.
Right
so if one should kind of not move as fast, we could pivot and go to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Or if one is more expensive than the other, it's we have options. That's the nice thing.
Good. Michael Singleton did have a question. If you could answer this, I do got to move on to my next guest. How long is phase 3?
Sure.
6 months, 4 years? Basically, I would assume it varies, but go ahead.
No. We're talking about a 5-day trial. So how long is it going to take us to do a 5-day trial? It's longer than that. It's 5 days of dosing, right? But then it's 30, 60 days of observation, because we're also going after, we're also monitoring the incidence of long COVID, right? So that's kind of a nice to know type of thing. So yeah, 6 months for phase 3. We're looking at 400 patients, 5-day trial, and we're trying to recruit the most prevalent disease on the planet right now, which is COVID-19.
Right on.
But we're doing it in we want this done in India. So like we can't use people in the United States in an Indian trial. It doesn't work that way.
Got it.
But you can use Indian people in a US trial. It does work that way.
Interesting.
That's the interesting caveat.
It is interesting, and I wanted to post this question, and as we get you out of here, I did want to post this question, and maybe you could answer this in the chat if you'd be able to do that. Once the trial is over and proven to be both safe and effective, what does BIXT hope to get in the future? A license deal? BIXT distributes. Where do you see the company going once proven? I don't know if you want to answer that one. How brief that would be.
We can answer that right now. Where do we see this once it's proven? We see a licensing deal in India, and then rapid label expansion. So if you don't know what label expansion, what it means is, all those other indications I talked to you about, COVID-19, RSV, influenza. Why couldn't we do a rapid label expansion on those other indications? And basically, so you have one drug, you come into the hospital with an upper respiratory tract infection, you take one drug, no test, no nothing, and then you just go home and you start feeling better in hours to a day, and then you test PCR negative in 3-4 days, or whatever time frame it works out to be when we finish our trial.
Right on. Mike Sheikh of BioXyTran, thank you so much for joining me again. We're going to touch base again in the next couple of weeks, because I'm just very, very intrigued, and congrats on the success you've had, and I hope you guys knock this thing out of the park. Seriously, thank you for coming on.
Hey, Rock, thank you. Pleasure being a guest.
Rock and roll.